Hello and welcome to Renew, the show about the College of Forest Resources at Mississippi State University. The College of Forest Resources promotes and enables the conservation, management, and wise use of our natural resources. I'm your host, Leslie Berger. Today's show will feature the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Aquaculture, one of the three departments within the college. Today we will feature Dr. Cristina Evans, one of the assistant professors within that department. Welcome to the show, Christine.
Thank you.
Sorry, I messed up your title. I gave you a promotion.
Okay. I know. I'm okay with that.
Okay, one of our missions within the college is to conserve our natural resources, and you actually are in a position where your title has the words conservation biologist in that title. So how do you take this mission and this position and title and actually turn that into activities that you work on every day?
Well, that's a great question, because when you think of conservation biology, it's a very broad topic. And so, you could focus on anything from threatened and endangered species to ecosystem management. So it really encompasses a lot of what the College of Forest Resources does, including as far as forest products, because we're managing for species in some of these ecosystems where forest products are a high priority.
Right.
So we can take a lot of that kind of general conservation biology kind of framework and pare it down to really specific questions, and that's what's really exciting about conservation biology. And the whole premise of conservation biology is really to restore species, restore ecosystems, work in a conservation mindset to make sure that we're managing our resources in a way that is sustainable into the future.
Right.
And what I work on is taking that kind of resource and conservation mindset and looking at large landscapes. So not just individual species and localities, but figuring out how to manage those across a larger landscape to make a bigger impact.
Right. So you work in some of the ecosystems that I've seen, some of the work that you've been doing has been bottomland hardwood forest, some native prairie, and then also coastal dunes. Why is it that these ecosystems are where you're choosing to focus your studies?
Yeah, so when you first think about it, why would I work in all these different, completely disparate ecosystems? And when you really start to understand the ecosystems that we have in the Southeast, you'll quickly learn that the ecosystems that I work in, native prairie, bottomland hardwoods, coastal dunes, those are all ones that are in serious threat of decline. Native prairie have lost almost 99% of the historic coverage. Pine savannas is another ecosystem that I work in a lot, and you'll talk to Amber Owen about that later.
Okay. So one of the things you're doing is actually then studying some of the relationships of the animals, specific species to the habitat characteristics. How does understanding that relationship between the animals and the habitat associations help us conserve things on this landscape level that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, so folks in my colleagues, they like to look at the conservation that's done right now or in the past as random acts of conservation kindness. A lot of folks will refer to that as kind of a little saying. And what it means is that we haven't done a great job as conservationists of really being strategic in where we put conservation on the landscape. And so that's one of the elements. The other element is, even though we've studied wildlife species for a long time, we still don't really have a good handle on many of these species' habitat requirements. Right. And so what I like to think is kind of twofold. At the local scale, we really need to understand really solidly what kind of vegetation structure, forest structure these animals or species are using. Scale that up, we also know that there's factors of the surrounding landscape that are going to influence those species. And so we kind of have to take a multi-scale approach to looking at conservation. And then that kind of builds up, and understanding how, from the local to the landscape, how those species interact and how those species interact with the habitat, then we can be more strategic in the way we put conservation on the ground.
So in about the minute that we have left, let's go from the scale of ecosystems to the classroom. How do you take what you're doing there in these ecosystem level questions and take that to the classroom and to the undergrads and the graduate students in our department?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's really hard to think big when you're a new undergrad and still trying to learn how to, really understand the field and understand how a species responds to habitat types. And I think the first thing you do is develop an appreciation for some of the critical ecosystems that we have in the Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
The Southeast has some of the rarest, most critical, most diverse ecosystems in the country, and people don't really understand and appreciate that. The other great thing about the Southeast is we're not as developed as other parts of the country. So you kind of, working with the classroom, you kind of set that framework that we've got a great conservation opportunity in natural resources in the Southeast that is not, people in the Northeast may not be able to do something like that. Right. So have them appreciate that scale, and then plug it into understanding how local associations with habitat, with forestry, with forest operations, and interact up at that scale.
Okay. Well, we'll learn more about that when your student Amber Owen comes in. I'm really excited to hear what she has to say, so I hope that you'll join us after the break.
Discovery. It tells our history and determines our future. At Mississippi State University, we're digging deep, unlocking an understanding of our past, validating it. Middle East exploration by faculty and students is uncovering evidence that unravels ancient mysteries. Scholars have long thought of the biblical kings David and Solomon as mythological figures. Our research offers evidence that supports their existence, boosting MSU into an international league of experts on archaeology. Now we're changing the way people think about the past, opening up new possibilities of understanding for future generations. Digging deeper, learning more. The sense of place. We all have it. Often grown from deep roots in small-town communities. At Mississippi State University, our Carl Small Town Center is strengthening these ties. With nearly 40 years of making a difference, we're revitalizing communities into welcoming places to work, live, and congregate. By weaving together the best pieces of our past with modern technology and amenities, we're creating the hometowns of the future. Places where lifetime memories can be made, where you have all the things you need, along with all the things you want. Through partnerships with our communities, we're identifying improvement opportunities, recommending paths forward, and creating the plans for a better tomorrow.
Hello and welcome back to Renew, the show about the College of Forest Resources at Mississippi State University. Joining me now is Amber Owen, a senior undergraduate in the department studying wildlife, fisheries, and aquaculture science. So welcome to the show, Amber.
Nice to be here.
Why did you choose wildlife and fisheries at Mississippi State? Why not go someplace else or choose another major?
Actually, when I started out at Mississippi State, I wasn't a different major. I was an anthropology major. I didn't know anything about WFA, and I saw a really interesting job posting on the Mississippi State job board, and it was studying lions in Africa and so glamorous, and I was like, this sounds so cool. And it was only open to WFA majors, so I switched my major just to apply for that job, and then ended up loving the classes, and so I just stuck with it.
Okay.
So.
Well, not only do you stick with it, you're actually participating in research. And many people, when they think about perhaps a degree program, they don't recognize that in addition to classes, there may be the opportunity for them to conduct research of their own under a faculty member's guidance, of course. And so you've been working with Dr. Cristina Evans, who we just visited with, to do some undergraduate research. And we have some photos that show you in the field doing some research. And so if you could explain kind of what we're seeing in the field. We also have some instruments, so we'll come back to that in just a minute. So in this picture here, you have binoculars, and you're in a field with cows. I doubt you're studying cows with binoculars,
No.
so what is it that you're doing there?
We are actually taking bird surveys, grassland bird surveys at this point. So Marty, the other girl in the picture, she's writing down birds she hears, or that we're calling out that we hear or that we see, and that's what we're using the binoculars for.
Okay. So you're doing a bird survey in this picture. We have another picture of you in the woods, and you're holding a very small instrument called a prism. It's difficult to see in the picture because it's small and it's clear. But what does the prism allow you to do?
Basically, I'm using it to measure basal area, so I'm looking through it and seeing the trees that are over 14 inches and counting them as present, so we know how many big trees there are out there.
Okay, so basal area is a measure of tree density?
Yeah,
tree
it's
size?
trees, tree stems per acre.
Okay, so it sort of gives you an idea of how many trees are there on the landscape. Okay, so in addition to that, you're holding something in this photograph, and it's actually, we have a copy of that, or maybe it's the very same instrument. What are you doing in this picture?
I am measuring percent canopy cover. So usually for this, you would use this very small instrument, and it is called spherical densitometer, and it shows a reflection of the trees above you. But we needed to differentiate between pine overstory and hardwood midstory when all you can see in this is shadows. So we built this, and so you can just see through it and use it
Right,
to
so
count.
you hold this up into the air and look through the bottom of it, and you know, if my board is the trees, by looking through the bottom of it, you can actually count the number of squares that are obscured versus the ones that are open, and that gives you a measure of coverage. So if all the squares are full, it's completely covered.
Yes.
No squares wide open. Okay. So that gives you an idea then of what the forest structure looks like. Okay. So that information then goes to the project that Dr. Evans has been working on as far as understanding the wildlife that are using this habitat and how we can then make smarter decisions about our conservation. Why did you pursue this opportunity for research? I mean, what do you think it's benefited you in what ways?
Well, I had been volunteering out at Noxby, the refuge, for quite a while, and the refuge biologist, Stephen Lewis, actually really wanted me to pursue this opportunity with Dr. Evans, and so I went ahead and I applied for it and got it, and it's really helped me to, one, learn my birds. I didn't know any of the birds starting in the project and their calls, and really helped me develop some leadership skills and talking skills. I was very shy, I would never talk to anyone, and I've made a lot of friends through it too, and just been able to bring things we learn in the classroom out into real life.
Okay, in about the 30 seconds we have left, what would you tell to other students who might be interested in this field? You came from anthropology and yet here you are. Is this worth pursuing, or what would you counsel someone?
I would say yes, it's definitely worth pursuing, and don't be afraid to go and ask for experience. We're a really tight-knit community and we always want to help each other out. And so go to professors or other undergrads or other graduate students. They'll welcome the company on their projects. And so.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming today, and thank you for joining us here on Renew. I hope you learned a little bit more about the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Aquaculture within the College of Forest Resources at Mississippi State. I hope that you'll join me again in the future to learn more about this institution. I look forward to seeing you again.